Welcome to Financial Issues with Shana Burt, where we join reality with truth, helping you to make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now, here's your host, Shana Burt.
Good Friday morning. It is Friday, May 24th, 2024, the Friday in advance of a holiday weekend. We hope that you will be celebrating Memorial Day this weekend with your family, remembering the sacrifices of so many who laid down their lives to protect the freedoms that we cherish in America today. Today's Rapid Fire Friday. If you've got some questions, get your call queued up now. 610-363-1110. Our stewardship verse today comes from Proverbs 22, verses 26 through 27. Do not be one of those who gives pledges, who put up security for debts. If you have nothing with which to pay, why should your bed be taken from under you? Stay tuned till later in the show. We're going to dig deeper into that. But right now, we want to get to some financial issues of the day. So at Financial Issues, we help you to stay in the know about the financial issues of the day. We keep you abreast of what's happening in the economy and the markets and help you understand how that impacts your own personal financial issues. Well, my takeaways from the week that is going to be ending later today, May 24th of 2024, are the following. The Feds FOMC meeting minutes were released this week. There was nothing really earth-shattering that was revealed, nothing really new. The Federal Reserve officials expressed concern that progress on inflation is stalling. That's not news to any of us, I don't believe.
No shock.
A smattering of higher than expected inflation reports are leaving many on the committee to question whether their policy is restrictive enough. The meeting minutes also indicated that some members have a willingness to take rates higher again. The minutes said, quote, various participants mentioned a willingness to tighten policy further should risks to inflation materialize in a way that such an action becomes appropriate. So, although they left the door open to the rate cuts later in the year, they indicated that they will be playing it by ear and stressed that they need greater confidence, quote, greater confidence, that inflation is coming down before getting to the rate cuts that the market has so eagerly been expecting. We got a little bit of housing market news out this week, and it really shows a bifurcated economy. So a mixed economy. You know, we are still hearing the narrative that Bidenomics is working and that we have this really, really strong economy. Don't get me wrong. We have a good economy, but we have an economy that is really being plagued by higher inflation, and that higher inflation is being driven by government spending. Well, the housing market had some mixed data out this week. So for those looking for or selling their $1 million plus home, the National Association of Realtors reported that inventory was up 34% for homes valued $1 million or more, and sales were up 40%. So great news for those who have homes in the $1 million plus range. For homeowners staying put, however, especially those with the golden handcuffs that we talk about, those who have really low mortgage rates and don't want to trade in their 3%, 4%, or 5% mortgage for a 7% or more mortgage, they continue to see their net worth rising as home values increase. Home prices continue to power on. They're higher by 5.7% year over year at the median level. To put that in perspective, let's take a walk down memory lane to pre-COVID, the pre-COVID era. The median home price prior to COVID was $281,000. Now, $407,000. That is a 45% increase since March of 2020.
Wow.
Great for homeowners that are shackled in with those golden handcuffs, but not so great for first-time home buyers who have little inventory because of the golden handcuffs and a 7% mortgage rate and 45% higher price tag than pre-COVID. Those benefiting home builders whose new builds are in high demand because we have a really low inventory. Existing home sales in April totaled 4.14 million. That was 90,000 below expectations, and these levels are bouncing around 30-year lows, highly attributable to where the 30-year mortgage rate is. Home improvement retailers and small construction companies who benefit from remodels are suffering. Lowe's and Home Depot had indicated that they are having some weakness in their businesses because people are not fixing up their homes to sell them. They've done a lot of the upgrades and updates during COVID that they had been wanting to do since they were spending more time at home, and now that business has slacked off a little bit. On the labor front, initial weekly jobless claims fell to 215,000 from 223 last week. That was 5,000 below what was expected. The 4-week moving average continued to tick up, 220,000 from 218,000. This is the highest level of continuing claims that we've seen since September of 2023. Now, continuing claims that are delayed by a week ticked up and were as expected, hovering right under that 1.8 million, staying near the highest since November of 2021. This indicates weakness in hiring, so far less jobs available now than they have been in the recent past. The hope is that the claims jump of 2 weeks ago, the initial claims jump of 2 weeks ago, which was abnormally caused by the New York education workers who are allowed to claim temporary benefits for spring break. But we will need to see more evidence that it was an anomaly and not just a trend higher in unemployment. Durable goods for April came in. They came in pretty much as expected when you include the downward 0.8 revision to March. New orders for manufactured durable goods in the U.S. rose by 0.7% month over month in April of 2024, following a downwardly revised 0.8% increase in March. So it marked the third consecutive monthly advance in durable good orders, primarily propelled by robust demand for transport equipment, demand for computers, electronic products, fabricated metal, machinery, and electrical equipment, appliances, and components also increased. Meanwhile, orders for non-defense capital goods, excluding aircraft, which is what we look at to see how business spending plans are coming along, that rose by 0.3% in April. So the AI craze has really been driving CapEx. We need CapEx for the corporate community to stay strong, but not really increasing as much. The whole CapEx budget in general, it's just being reallocated from other areas. The markets, NVIDIA posted stellar earnings. Who would have thought that we would be looking at earnings reports for a single company as an economic indicator? Right. But NVIDIA posted stellar earnings and gave great guidance, keeping the tech-heavy NASDAQ hanging on to small gains for the week. The Dow and S&P, not so much. The Dow is a much narrower indice and does not include NVIDIA. So for the week ending May the 24th, we're seeing the Dow looking to be on target for a 2% loss, the S&P down 0.6%, and the NASDAQ hanging in positive territory at 0.25. So now that you're in the know about the current and upcoming financial issues of this week and next week, we hope that you will learn more about our ministry at financialissues.org. Find out how you can defund darkness with a biblically responsible investment strategy and fund the light by being a joyful and generous giver. Speaking of, get on over to financialissues.org and make your gift to Preborn Ministries this week as we help them reach their goal to save the lives of babies. Well, don't go anywhere. We're going to take a break, but we'll be back with more financial issues right after this.
The The miracle of carrying a child creates a unique bond between a mother and her unborn baby. She feels the baby's movements and responds to their needs even before birth. Help create that bond between an abortion-minded mother and her unborn child by giving the gift of life through Preborn. During the month of May, you can bless your mom for Mother's Day by giving to Preborn on your mother's behalf. For $28, you can sponsor an ultrasound scan that will enable an abortion-minded woman to hear the heartbeat of her baby. 90% of the time, that sound will change a woman's mind and cause her to keep their baby. Give the gift of life to the woman that gave you life by sponsoring an ultrasound. Go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM. You can help an abortion-minded mother receive discipleship, encouragement, and the strength needed to have her baby.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. It is Rapid Fire Friday, and our phone lines are open. If you call now, you will be the first caller in the queue. 610-363-1110. So give us a call if you've got some questions about financial issues that you're struggling with. We want to help you be a good steward of everything that the Lord has given you. So 610-363-1110. Well, we also got, I didn't quite get to all the economic data in the first segment there, but inflation worries are putting downward pressure on the markets. The S&P Global Flash U.S. Composite PMI, which measures the activity in the manufacturing and service sectors, rose to 54.4 in May from 51.3 in April. That's the highest level in more than 2 years. So this is that inflation trying to rear its ugly head again that I believe the Fed is a bit concerned about. Also, in other news, one of the things that I don't talk about very often, but I do pay attention to, is the total rig count in the United States. So how is Biden doing with his promise, his campaign promise to keep those evil fossil fuels in the ground? Well, total rig count increased in the U.S. to 604 in May, on May 17th from 603 the previous week. Total rigs in the United States averaged right at 1,500 from 1950 to 2024. So it seems like he's making a good bit of progress, right? Well, far below the average. However, in December of 1981, there was a record low of 244 that spiked up, and we had that higher average. And now what we're seeing, and I think we've got a little graphic to put on up on the screen there to see exactly how Biden is doing in decreasing the number of rigs and oil production. Well, it doesn't really look like he's doing very well, thank goodness, because we would see inflation still rising. We would see gas prices still going up. So while the Biden administration talked a really tough game on fossil fuels, U.S. oil production under his watch has skyrocketed. And you can see that if you're looking at the chart there. So to put that in perspective, what you see on the very left-hand side is the very end of the Trump administration. If we had backed that out a little bit, you would have seen a great increase during the Trump administration of oil production in the U.S., where we actually became energy independent. Of course, COVID hit there toward the end, and we see a drop off. And then, President Biden taking office in 2021. So then you can see there how the march upward has just really taken off. So that, in addition to draining our strategic oil reserve, and gas prices have still gone up. So while the Biden administration promised to keep evil fossil fuels in the ground, U.S. oil production has skyrocketed. So we are surpassing levels of oil production that we saw at the peak of the Trump administration. So while the economy may still be trucking along, it's not due to Bidenomics. It's moving on fossil fuels, not green energy.
That's good, Shana. Speaking of Bidenomics, we got the comment of possibly the year from Brian in Wildwood, Missouri, saying Bidenomics is pay more for less and be told you're confused if you don't think the economy is great. Well said, Brian.
It's shrinkflation.
That's right.
It's shrinkflation. It's all of these evil corporations who are just greedy and money hungry, and putting less in the same packaging and charging you the same for it. It's all a mind game, right? Just like
ruse.
Politics.
Yeah, right. Seriously.
That's a mind game too.
That's right.
Well, it looks like we are getting some calls coming into the queue. Yeah. How about we go to Al? Foster, who's calling from Alabama.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Foster, good morning. You're live on Financial Issues. Hey, Foster, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Hey, good morning. You're live with Shana. What's on your mind this morning?
Yes, I have a question about the TE91. I been keeping up with it, and I noticed it's gone up way up and everything. And I noticed on some of the news this morning on the phone that it was showing a 10-to-1 split. Could she explain a little bit that, if that happens, how that works?
Sure. A split is really something that tends to have more of a psychological effect than anything else. So this particular company, just to make the numbers easy, is trading around $1,000 a share. So a lot of individual investors will look at that and they'll say, wow, that's really expensive. However, companies, a gauge of valuation is never really adequate if you look at the stock price. So you have to look at all of the underlying metrics, because you could look at a stock that's $1,000 a share and say, oh, well, that's really expensive compared to this other stock that's only $10 a share. But that really tells you absolutely nothing. The stock that is $1,000 a share could have great earnings. It could have great future potential, just like the one that you mentioned. And the $10 a share stock could have negative earnings, no future, no potential. So it's not really a good gauge of value. But so what a split is in this particular company is going to be doing a 10-for-1 split. So if you had one share at $1,000 after the split, you're going to have 10 shares at $100. So you can see, if you do the math, you have exactly the same value as you had before the split. But then there's this psychological phenomenon that goes on that looks like, oh, well, that stock used to be $1,000. Now it's only $100. So it's a lot cheaper, when in reality, nothing is different at the time of the split.
So I have 47 shares, and I started that when Dan first mentioned it. And I've just been investing $400 a month in it and everything. So I'm up to 47 shares. So if they do split it, it'd be like 470 shares. Is that what
you got
you're
it?
saying?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So is it, if it goes down 10-to-1 split, do I need to sink a bunch of money in it after it splits, or
Well, it's not on our buy list right now.
Down?
It's not on our buy list right now, so I wouldn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would really focus on the things that are on the buy list because those are going to be our best ideas for new money going forward.
Okay. Well,
All right.
I sure do. Thank you.
All right, Foster. Thanks for calling.
Thanks, Foster.
Such a great question.
Thank y'all.
Hey, Shana, speaking of which, it is a good question. It's very similar to Jose's question on Ask Shana there, asking similar about the same stock, TE91. Doesn't have it as part of his portfolio yet, and he mentioned that split. He's wondering, should I wait a little after the split to see if the surge relaxes some, buy at the split, or buy now? Pretty sure I know what you're going to say.
I'm going to say wait until it comes onto the buy list.
Yep.
I will tell you that there are some biblically responsible issues that we are watching with this particular stock. So I would avoid it right now.
Awesome. It's good stuff. Shannon, I know we have a call in there right now as well, but we got some other questions we can get to. We also have a headline. Pride Month is coming. You want to talk about Pride Month? We're going to be inundated with it in about a week.
Yeah, let's prepare.
Sounds good. So this is an interesting headline. Oreo, the proud partner of a group championing gender transition for kids, might get the Bud Light treatment, according to a watchdog here, Shannon. I sure hope so.
I hope so too.
The NLPC is a shareholder of the Oreo parent company called Mondelez, I believe.
Mondelez.
Okay, thank you. My Spanish is off. Warned that the investors that the cookie maker is setting itself up for a boycott akin to Target's profit-busting Pride merch debacle. Shannon, what are your thoughts on this?
Some fools never learn.
Yeah, right.
That is my take on it.
I feel like that's a quality of most fools is they never learn, right?
That's right.
That's a part of
the scripture has a lot to say about fools too.
Yeah.
It is really a shame because, this it's not only the transgender lie that they are perpetuating and putting forward, but they also have some rhetoric in there about what they support with or what their beliefs are along the lines of Israel and Hamas. So really downplaying what Hamas did and putting forth this pro-Hamas garbage. Well, I can tell you that Mondelez is not the kind of company that you will find on our buy list. I love Oreos. I loved Oreos as a kid, but you know what? Doritos are pretty good too. And the kind of garbage that they support, though, although we may continue to eat some of those things, we're not going to be investors in those kind of things because we're not going to allow the board of Mondelez or any company that we own to support an agenda that harms children, because that is what's happening. This LGBTQ agenda is basically browbeating people into submissions, criticizing Christians, saying that we need to be tolerant, saying that we need to accept lies, basically, that is harming our children. You can connect so many things that are happening in our society to this transgender movement. Anytime we refuse the truth of God, that we substitute a lie for the truth of God, we are going to suffer the consequences for it. Organizations like the Trevor Project wouldn't exist if there were not companies out there pushing the lie of transgenderism. Now, the Trevor Project is a nonprofit organization that continues to tell children that they can choose their own gender, that they were not made male and female. They can change their own agenda, and we can help you change. We can help you change your gender, even if your parents aren't in support of that. They say that they are trying to reduce the level of suicide in the transgender community. Well, hey, here's a great way to do it. Tell them the truth. Tell them that they are special, that they are who God created them to be. Encourage them to embrace their gender and move in their God-given destiny as the man or woman that God created them to be. So let's pray for the National Legal Policy Center as they go before the board and shareholders of Mondelez to expose the dark agenda that they are funding with Mondelez shareholder money. Well, folks, if you listen to an outlet that only carries the short version of the show, we have to wish you a farewell for today. We hope that you have a great long Memorial weekend, and we hope that you come back for more Financial Issues next week. For the rest of you, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back with more financial issues. Consider calling in and weighing in on the issues of Pride Month or how inflation is impacting you.
What can you tell our listeners about the benefits of being a partner?
If you can listen every day, that's great. If you can't, the partner conference calls are a great second option to that. Re-listening through the phone app also is really good. Since Dan's no longer here and he's in heaven, watch all of his old videos. All of those are up there for even the young partners that are just starting out. Dan really got into the details, things that I didn't quite understand. There's a lot of important things that Dan said that has been captured.
Many mothers find strength in the experience of giving birth as they overcome physical challenges and embrace the journey of bringing a new life into the world. You can help an abortion-minded mother receive discipleship, encouragement, and the strength needed to have her baby. During the month of May, you can bless your mom for Mother's Day by giving to Preborn on your mother's behalf. Go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is to plant roots and be in a place for a really long time. It's how we were raised. We see the benefits of that, but we also see the open-handedness of being used by the Lord wherever He calls, because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
And we're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
Throughout the month of May, FISM is partnering with Preborn to fund the light by providing 100 ultrasound machines to pro-life centers around the country. Now, how can you contribute? Well, for as little as $28, you can provide an ultrasound scan to an abortion-minded woman in crisis. And when that woman hears the heartbeat of her baby, she will choose life. Get this, 90% of the time. It's remarkable. And guess what? With the help of a donor match, for every 200 scans donated, that's for a net value of $5,600, Preborn Ministries will be gifted an ultrasound machine to place at a clinic in need. Each machine has the potential to impact hundreds of thousands of mothers' choices. Preborn also offers additional support to mothers in need and presents the gospel to every mother who comes into their clinics, knowing that salvation is the greatest gift that can be given to a mother and her child. So go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Here at Financial Issues, we are a partner and listener-supported ministry. We're helping you be a good steward of everything that the Lord has given you. We believe that the Lord owns everything and gives as He pleases. So He gives to those who are obedient, who are responsible, and who choose to honor Him in the way that they manage their resources. So our goal is to educate and equip people to honor God in the way that you invest in your stewardship and in your giving strategies. And for just $132 a year, you can partner with this ministry. You'll get access to our biblically responsible investment strategy that is going to equip you to honor God in the way that you invest. And you will be funding the very things that we need to conduct the research that we do that drives our strategy. So we spend money on reports and information about the companies that we follow so that we can give you good guidance as to where good places to put your investment dollars are. And we also encourage you to be a joyful and generous giver. So donating to ministries like Preborn, who are fighting the good fight of faith, pushing back against the darkness of abortion. Seth, do you have an update for us where we are? Or we've only got about another week left.
Yep, folks, it's time to go full court press mode here. We're at about $163,000, which is absolutely fantastic. That's right around 30 machines here. So we're halfway to that 50 goal, but this is the time, folks. If you have not given yet, now's the day to do it. Financialissues.org, and click that Preborn banner. It'll take you right to the landing page where you can give securely. If you're more comfortable giving over the phone, you can always dial pound 250 and say keyword baby. You'll just have to make sure that you mention that this is for the FISM May Mother's Day campaign. But yeah, now is the time to save babies, folks. So let's continue that march as we march forward together. But thank you all to those of you who have given. It truly is amazing.
Absolutely. And if you're giving shares of appreciated stock, or maybe you're 70.5 and you're doing a qualified charitable distribution from your IRA account, make sure to send Pat a note, Pat at financialissues.org, so that she can pass that along to Preborn, and they know that that donation is going to count towards the match that we are getting here at Financial Issues. Well, taking a look at the markets, after NVIDIA's earnings hit after the bell on Wednesday and pushed its price almost 10% higher, the indices opened the day yesterday in positive territory before settling into mixed territory. By the late afternoon, the indices fell under the flat line. By the close, the Dow was down 1.53%. That is the worst day of 2024, and the worst day going back into, I believe, November of 2023. The S&P closed 0.75 of a point lower, with 10 out of 11 sectors in the S&P falling on Thursday. Only the information technology sector, which includes NVIDIA, eked out a 0.6% gain. The NASDAQ ended in negative territory as well, down 0.39%. Well, the markets have opened in positive territory today, reversing course a little bit. The Dow is up 0.2%, the NASDAQ up 1/3 of a point, and the S&P up a little over 1/3 of a point. So heading to close the week out in positive territory if it continues on this way. Well, let's get to our stewardship verse of the day. It is from Proverbs 22, 26, and 27. Be not one of those who gives pledges, who put up security for debts. If you have nothing with which to pay, why should your bed be taken from under you? Seth?
It's good, Shana. It's just, similar to a cross-reference from the same book, actually, Proverbs 6:1. Those two verses say almost the same thing. They're warning against pledging oneself to another's debt and then basically being held bondage by your word. Even if that person defaults on payments, it could end up backfiring on you. And the scripture's clear that it's far better to avoid this and simply give to those in need with no strings attached, both for the giver and for the recipient. And so, speaking of something that's a rather tricky topic, Shana, that actually has to do with this responsibility to pay debt, I wanted to ask you just some questions about this idea of bankruptcy and the Christian worldview. It could be potentially a gray area for Christians. We hear of companies going bankrupt all the time. I believe Red Lobster was one of those recently. There's some other companies that, have done that. And some of us, I even know people personally who have declared bankruptcy at some point in their life. So I guess my first question is, it's probably helpful for us to understand our terms. What actually is the definition of bankruptcy, and what happens when a person or a business declares bankruptcy?
Yeah. So bankruptcy is a legal proceeding that's carried out to free individuals or businesses from the debts that they entered into willingly. So creditors still have an opportunity for repayment. Sometimes it depends on the kind of bankruptcy that you do, but sometimes some of your debt is wiped out, or I would say forgiven. I don't know if it's really truly forgiven because it's really stolen from the person that it's owed to, or the entity that it's owed to. And sometimes the payments are just are restructured in a way. So bankruptcy is handled in federal courts, and the rules are outlined in U.S. bankruptcy code. Bankruptcy will stay on your credit report for a number of years, just depending on which way you file, making it more difficult for you to borrow in the future.
Yeah, and kind of a similar question with that, Shana, is like, how would it be different or similar if it's an individual versus a business? Is it kind of the same process, or is it a little bit different? How would that work?
Well, it's usually on a much larger scale
Yeah.
when it's a business, and it usually hurts a lot more people, and it has the potential to hurt the shareholders as well who take an ownership position. I remember, one of the biggest ones was the Enron bankruptcy.
Yep.
There was a lot of deceit involved in and around that. People who were invested in that company were looking at publicly available data that was released from the company, trying to make good decisions on whether or not to be an owner, found out that there was a lot of deception going on there. And, that typically goes hand in hand with failures. The scripture says your sin will find you out. There's always the principle of reciprocity, reaping and sowing. So, it really is a way of getting out of what the standard that the scripture sets for us. The scripture says that our yes should mean yes and our no should mean no. So it means that if we agree to pay back money that we're borrowing, we should do that.
Yeah, that's really good. So this is a tough question, Shana, but is there ever a time where bankruptcy could be a positive thing? Like, I've heard some people say, oh, it's a clean slate. You declare bankruptcy and you can kind of start over. Is that really true, or should Christians think differently about this because of what the Bible says, your yes be yes and your no be no?
Well, I think that some people end up in a situation where they have no other choice to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it should be considered a clean slate. I don't think it should be anything that is celebrated. In fact, I think we should have heartfelt repentance over those who we've harmed by not being able to live up to our word.
Yeah, it's well said. Last step on this topic, Shannon. What are some practical steps that the average investor can take to avoid ever needing to file for bankruptcy?
Well, pray. Consult the Lord about all of your financial decisions. You should avoid unnecessary debt, and you shouldn't live beyond your means. And if you incur debt, you should do whatever you can to pay it back. Don't look for the easy way out, because most likely than not, you will not learn your lesson, and you'll end up back in the same situation that you're facing right now.
Good stuff. Shana, thank you so much, especially I know we have some young listeners out there, and for me as well, it's good to hear the wisdom there, and to see this for what it really is.
Yeah. Be true to your word.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good stuff. Well, Shana, I don't think we have time for anything more because we got the Ag Report coming up in just a little bit here.
Sounds great. Well, we're going to hear from Craig Haugaard. We're going to take a break, and then we'll be back with more financial issues. If you've got a question, get your call queued up, 610-363-1110.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for May 24th. Well, corn prices were supported by continued concern over delayed plantings, as well as by very solid weekly export sales. Now, in the past 20 years, we've had 7 years in which we had a slow planting pace. And in only one of the 7 instances did we put a new high in December futures after June 1st. The bottom line is, make sure that you're rewarding this rally with some sales. Yesterday's close had July corn 2 3/4 cents higher at $4.64 per bushel. Soybeans fell victim to speculative selling. Beans were also hurt by very uninspiring weekly export sales. Now, Brazil has just flat out eaten our lunch in the export market. They're currently offering soybeans delivered to China for 75 cents per bushel cheaper than U.S. offerings. As a result, July beans were 7 cents lower yesterday at $12.39 1/4. Wheat was supported by a report from the International Grains Council, which stated that they are cutting the Russian wheat estimate by almost 5 million metric tons because of frost damage in that nation. As a result, Minneapolis July wheat was 7.5 cents higher at $7.44. Kansas City rose by 11 1/4 cents to close at $7.10 3/4, with Chicago and nickel higher at $6.98 per bushel. Cotton futures had good follow-through on the heels of Wednesday's limit higher move. At the close, July futures were up another 234 points at 81.72. Livestock futures were a sea of red ink. August live live cattle were 60 cents lower, $181.75 per hundredweight. August feeder cattle dropped by $1.45 to sell at $261.45 per hundred. And August lean hog futures were 52.5 cents lower, closing out the day at $97.02 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures inched higher, but were unable to fill the gap from earlier this week. At the close, June futures were up a single point at 19.96. Well, this has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
The miracle of carrying a child creates a unique bond between a mother and her unborn baby. She feels the baby's movements and responds to their needs even before birth. Help create that bond between an abortion-minded mother and her unborn child by giving the gift of life through Preborn. During the month of May, you can bless your mom for Mother's Day by giving to Preborn on your mother's behalf. For $28, you can sponsor an ultrasound scan that will enable an abortion-minded woman to hear the heartbeat of her baby. 90% of the time, that sound will change a woman's mind and cause her to keep their baby. Give the gift of life to the woman that gave you life by sponsoring an ultrasound. Go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM. You can help an abortion-minded mother receive discipleship, encouragement, and the strength needed to have her baby.
Samuel Case, news anchor with FISM News, sits down to read real comments from real viewers.
You know, I tend not to read social media comments, so this is kind of a big deal for me. I'm kind of nervous, but we're going to see how it goes. It's not George. Thanks. It's been a while since I've watched real news. I kind of have a suspicion your name actually is George, but, you know, regardless, thanks so much. We really do strive to be as authentic, real, and professional as we possibly can be, so we really do appreciate that you're picking up on that. And this one's from Echo Pixel. Keep spreading truth. Will do, Echo. Love this. It's just the news, no spin. It'd be nice if all the news was this way, honestly. Just all the facts and no biases. Sadly, that's a pipe dream, though. If you don't like what other news outlets are doing and you like what we're doing, you can always follow us on FISMnews.tv. That's our website. You can also follow us on social media and by downloading the FISM app as well. The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. It is Rapid Fire Friday, and we have a caller that's been in the queue waiting on us. We'll get right to Dale calling from Indiana. Hi, Dale. You're live on Financial Issues.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I got an email about the Dutch auction tender offer for let's see, it's CS65, and I was just wondering what your opinion on that was.
Well, that company's currently on our buy list. It's basically the company is trying to buy back some of their shares. Share buybacks are typically a pretty positive thing for the price of a company going forward, so I'd hang on to my shares.
All right. Yeah, they're offering $25 less a share than what it currently is priced, so I figured it'd be, I was planning on keeping it, but I just wanted to make sure, so.
Yeah, I would keep it.
All right. Okay. Thanks you.
Thanks for holding, Dale.
Have a good, bye.
Good call, Dale. Hey, Shana, we had a question from Tom as well. Tom, I hope you're listening there on Ask Shana, because he was asking, do you have a recommendation on what to do about the Dutch tender offer for that same company? It sounds like it's the same answer for Tom, too.
Yep, same answer.
Yeah, good.
I'd hang on to them. It is a company that is on our buy list right now.
Awesome.
So our phone line is open. If you want to get in before the end of the program today, you need to call now, 610-363-1110. Well, Seth, you know, most Americans say that we're in a recession. And they're blaming Biden. Did you hear about that?
Very interesting. I did. Yeah, it's 56% believe the U.S. is in a recession. Shannon, could you remind us the technical definition of a recession?
It's 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. That's growth of the economy. We are technically not in a recession. We would have to see negative numbers for the current quarter that we're in. We had positive numbers. We're on track for very positive numbers this year, too. So to see a recession in 2024, now you are in a recession before you actually know that you're in a recession because you have to wait to see the numbers reported at the end of the quarter. But
right.
I don't believe that we technically are.
So my question with this is I'm wondering if many of these Americans are just kind of using the term recession as like a placeholder for the economy is bad. And so they'll say 56% believe the economy is bad. I think that's absolutely true. 58% attributed the country's economic problems to mismanagement by the Biden administration. 55% said the economy is shrinking despite the Biden administration's insistence that the economy is growing. 49% of Democrats who participated in the poll also said the U.S. is in a recession. Shana, that's really interesting, seeing that many number, that large of a number. Yeah.
Inflation is a big problem for the consumer, especially the lower end consumer that are not seeing the wage increases that they need to stay ahead of inflation. And it really hurts their discretionary budgets. And so, inflation being out of control with, what is the person that's spending more money at the pump, spending more money at the grocery store, spending more money on their utility bills and cable bills and phone bills and everything else? What do they care if unemployment is at 4.9%? I'm sorry, 3.9%. What do they care if, there are supposedly the Biden administration has created all of these millions and millions of jobs? What do they care if the income that they're getting from the job that they have isn't keeping up with inflation?
Yeah.
They don't. And, they're speaking loud and clear. And I hope that they understand that it is you can't just put it squarely on all of the blame on the shoulders of the Biden administration. There's been a long-standing problem in our country of our government spending more money than it brings in. And that is a bipartisan problem, and it needs to be addressed. But the Biden administration has just really put that spending on steroids because they have the view that it is the government's job to control the economy. It's the government's job to make sure that there are jobs created. It's the government's job to bail out companies and to bribe companies to do business here rather than just creating a great business environment where businesses can really thrive. Low regulations and things like that. So the Biden administration wants to get their hands on as much money as they possibly can because they have ideas about redistributing the wealth, of equity, of making outcomes the same. That's not the American way. The American way is to give everybody an equal opportunity to use the gifts, talents, and abilities that the Lord has given them to make a successful life. Not just to walk in and say, because I'm an American, the government's going to make me equal to everybody else. They're going to make my economic status the same. It's impossible. The government can't do it. It's only about control. It's only about being able to put forth their agenda. And that's the bent that we have as human beings towards sin, towards wanting to control everything. And it's really out of control.
Yeah, absolutely is. Nonetheless, Shana, I think it's great to see this amount of people on both sides, like you said, who are realizing, okay, something's wrong here. Like you had mentioned, rising prices at the gas pump, rising prices in the grocery store, even people who maybe are in favor of what they would say like are Biden's policies, like they love his, what he's done for the LGBTQ community, they'll say. And in the final analysis, they don't really care about that stuff because their pocketbook's getting hit, right? And that's common sense. So
sounds like they're waking up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like they're waking up.
We need more of that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
For sure. Well, Shana, I know we have a couple partner questions that we can get to here before the end of the program.
All right, let's do it.
Let's start with Lance here. Yeah, he says, I've owned F80 over 2 years, and it's down 29%, with me dollar cost averaging as it has gone down. Should I sell this stock and take the loss, or should I hold on to it? I'm 53. What do you think, Shana?
Well, 2 years is not long term.
Yeah.
So, when you buy a company, at least one that's on our buy list, we're looking 8 to 10 years down the road. Now, this particular company pays over 2.5% dividend, so you can look at it as you're getting paid to wait. You're accumulated some shares in a company that's going to generate some income down the road when you get closer to retirement. But I will tell you, it is recently been taken off the buy list. I would not add to it at this point. There are unfortunately, some biblically responsible issues that we're growing in concern over. So I would not add to it for that reason, and I would not be super concerned. It is still a very strong, a fundamentally strong company. I would not be concerned with it being down at this point.
Great, Shana. It's good. Alyssa is the next one, 63 years old. She says, Shana, we're in the 55 to 65 asset allocation model, trying to retire in 2 years. I'm 63, husband is 66. I've contributed to an IRA for each of us since we need the tax write-off. We only have a church tithe. How can I build a Roth account for each of us? It's my understanding you can't contribute to both a Roth and an IRA in the same year. Do we forego the tax deduction and contribute to the Roth? We're in the 22% tax rate. What do you think?
Yeah. So you can contribute to both a Roth and an IRA in the same year. You just have one limit. So, since you're over 50, you can contribute up to $7,000 a piece, but that's the total. You have to add up what you contribute to a Roth and what you contribute to an IRA. It doesn't mention here if you have a 401k or anything like that. If you do have a 401k, especially one that matches, I would first put your money there so that you get that match, and then I would not be opposed to you giving up the tax deduction there. You have a really high standard deduction right now, which may change if Congress doesn't act to extend President Trump's tax code at the end of next year. So you have most people are using the standard deduction now. They're not using itemized deductions because their itemized deductions just aren't as high as the standard deduction. So, yes, I would be in favor of considering giving up that tax break. 22% is, nobody likes to pay 22% of their income in taxes, but historically, it's a fairly low tax rate. I think taxes are going to be higher in the future than what they are today. So I think it makes a lot of sense to be investing in an account where your future growth is tax-free, like a Roth, because you're going to get more benefit. Let's say that you take the 22% tax break today, but in the future, let's say tax rates are 30%, and you're trying to then get the money out of a tax divert account that you invested in, some years back. 30% is worse than 22%. Yeah. So if you think taxes are going to be higher in the future, just in general, or for your specific situation, it makes more sense to opt for the tax-free growth of a Roth.
Good stuff, Shana. Last one for the day probably is what we'll get to here. Kim is asking, would E48 be a good replacement for E47? If not, would you suggest a good replacement for E47? I'm in the 55 to 65 asset allocation model. Should I hold energy stocks in my Roth account or my non-qualified individual brokerage? She's also 63. What do you think?
You know what? We're going to have to hold that question because I don't know what E48 is off the top of my head.
Yep. All good.
So we'll pick up that question later.
Perfect.
We are getting to the end of the program.
Sounds great.
Folks, we hope that you have a great weekend of worship in church on Sunday, and we hope that you get to spend some time with your friends and your family, and we hope that you will have discussions, that you will have prayers for those who are serving in our military, and that you will remember those who have paid the ultimate price so that we can have the freedom that God gave us. Remember those who have given their lives in service to this country this Memorial Day. And tune in on Monday. We will have never-before-seen content on financial issues. So make sure that you get on over here, especially if you're enjoying the day off. Well, folks, we'll be here, Lord willing, to remind you that time's getting short. The Master's coming back. There's going to be a test. And we want to help you be found a good and faithful steward as you manage the resources God has trusted you to manage.
We never forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation going under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.